This is Giving Purpose Podcast, highlighting Bay Area nonprofits and the work they do to better our communities.
Hello and welcome to Giving Purpose Podcast, where we highlight San Francisco Bay Area nonprofits and the work they do to better our communities. This is your host, Ana Pimentel-Calero, along with co-host Joe Neto, and we are very excited to have you listening in and would like to introduce our guest. But first, as always, how's your week, Joe?
My week is great. Got all my grad gear, right? Excited about that. That's like a whole, I know it's a couple months away, but just, going home and trying it all on and going, how do I put these things on? What is this? Big old sleeves underneath. None of it makes sense to me, but I'm sure when I show up, I'll just look at everybody else and go, oh, I need to go to the dressing room real fast and change it up. But yeah, I'm excited about that. I mean, this whole project came about from our grad school experience, and I'm really happy. In one instance, I'm really happy to be done with grad school, but it's a bittersweet moment because I met people like you and Bella, and put together something of this sort. And just so many people that I've met throughout, the whole experience, and I feel good, but I also feel a little sad about it. But still, it's all positive, right?
Right, all positive, and we'll all keep in touch.
That's right, sure. We're going to keep this going. What are you talking about?
Right, of course. All right, so let's introduce our guest. Monica Galvan is the executive director and founder of Arte del Corazón and knows firsthand the importance of arts within the community. She has 15 years of experience as an artist and community leader in Watsonville, California, and over 7 years of experience as a teaching artist and art administrator. As a painter and sculptor herself, Monica has received coveted grants, certificates, and scholarships. As the executive of Arte del Corazón, Monica carries a mission to provide artists, particularly those historically excluded from the arts sector, opportunities for financial advancement, professional development, and community engagement. So that was a little bit about Arte del Corazón, but can you tell us a little bit more, Monica, about the program and the nonprofit?
Yeah, we started back in 2019, and since then we have expanded to have youth programming and doing a lot more workshops for people in our community. So what we started as was an art market, Mercado Artesanal. We would do them almost every month, super religiously. And then slowly but surely, we started to build the awareness of the nonprofit in our community. And we were able to start applying for grants and things like that. And so we've gotten a little bit further.
That's amazing. I know I went to one of your events back in December, and it was the Loteria night where you guys also had the Grinch come out. And I know I went with my husband and our daughter and my nieces and my sister, and we just had such a great time. So it was a huge event and a really big turnout. So that's something that's really nice to see, is the community being engaged a lot more. Speaking of community engagement, on the Arte del Corazón website, your vision is listed as follows: to create spaces where Watsonville artists can connect with each other and the community. Can you talk a little bit more about the community and the history of the arts in the city of Watsonville?
Yeah. So I've been in a lot of meetings, let me tell you, to discuss this, because I'm a baby. I'm 30. I don't have that much experience within the arts sector of Watsonville in that sense. But what I've heard is that there's been a lot of moments where there's been a lot of funding, like, here's a lot of money, here you go. And then there's been a lot of like, oh, okay, they have the funding, and then people kind of leave, and then it gets stagnant for a while. And then the funding comes back, and then it starts all over again. But what that's led to is a community that has trauma, right? Because they're like, oh, the money's here, and then the money's gone. The money's here, and the money's gone. And so there's no certainty of if it's going to come. And so people don't expect it. And so they don't seek out the resources because they haven't had them. They haven't been there. But in terms of space and us interacting with people, back in 2018 is when I came up with the business plan for this museum in Watsonville. I was like, we're going to have an art gallery just like the mall, and it's going to be big. Everyone's going to come. And I was like, okay, I need to chill out a little bit. There needs to be something more, right? We need to figure out how to get people to attend this gallery and pay for admission or figure out ways to pay for it. And I've never run a nonprofit before. I've only worked at nonprofits, right? So from that, that idea of this space was super prevalent, and we had to start small. We started with just going to markets and leaving home, going home market, Instagram, Facebook, any way we can connect with the community. And now we have a space. So we found a space back in August in Watsonville. And since then, we have been able to have people in our space. And that's why you came to that event. I think that was the most people we've ever had at our space. We had like over 60 people. Like, we completely went overboard on that.
Yeah, I was going to say it was packed, but it was so much fun. That was such a fun event.
Exactly.
Is there a season in particular that's a little harder to get the grants and the money? I noticed like some people after the holidays kind of, there's a few months there that things slow down. There's not a lot going on in terms of people getting out and doing things. But is there a grant season where things do come in and then it slows down? Just so maybe our audience can fill in the gaps or something of that sort,
Yeah. So a lot of grants are due around June. So they start to come out around now. So like we have like the Creative Work Fund, which is I think due actually in the 2nd of April, which is for artists to connect with a local nonprofit or I think business. I have to look at the guidelines and do a project together, which is cool. But then there's also like the administrative funding grants, and those usually come from the California Arts Council, the biggest ones I've been able to find. And those ones, I think they drop it either today or another day this week, maybe next week. But once those are out, they're like due around May, and then you wait for that because those are like the most funding that's out there for arts organizations. And then you usually find out in like June, and then you have to wait again for the money to come through. So there's a lot of waiting.
Sure.
And then how important is the arts, would you say, within the community, and how impactful is it to the community as well?
Yeah, I think culturally and just like everything about Watsonville has always felt very like beautifully creative. Like the homes, everyone's homes is beautifully decorated. There's like beautiful like landmarks in our community. The music is big. The dancing, like you'll get into dancing like everywhere there in Watsonville. It's beautiful. But when it comes to like visual arts, it's been slow to kind of gain momentum, I think. Like there's the muralists, but there hasn't been that many muralists. But other than that, like this idea of selling art, like how we have this like concept of selling art in museums, or not in museums, in galleries, where people like get like the galleryist gets like 30%, and then the artist gets 50%, and the artist gets 50%. Like that type of thing is not sustainable yet in Watsonville. And that's where a lot of artists historically has made their money.
And how do you want to get to that point at some point within Watsonville of the buying from galleries and artists get the 50%, the gallery gets 50%? And if so, how do you guys see yourself being able to move towards that?
I think that is a westernized ideal, right? It is something that like we have been told this is how artists make money. This is the only way. But I know as a working artist myself that is not sustainable, right? Like artists in our community, we're teaching artists. Like I'm a teaching artist myself. We, do logos for people on the side. We, help people with posters. We're very much connected to everybody, doing a little bit of something to make ends meet and be happy and like not feel like we're trying to like, I don't know, get up in the 100,000 mark as artists, and that like crazy dream we're fed that it's possible. We're just like living the life and being comfortable. So, I mean, I don't know if that's something people want. I'm sure it is because you see it and that's what you thrive for. But I think realistically, our community needs more connection for them to feel more like happy making.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I mean, being a musician, it's like a lot of the times I feel like even though I'm making money for everybody in my band, I feel like I'm putting money into it with, the venue that we're going to or whatever. But it's really, you got to love it, and you love what you're getting. Part of what it is, part of the payoff is you love what people get from what you're creating, At least that's my experience around it. But that's not paying the gas in my car or the bills at the house, you know? So I understand as an artist, it's a struggle to balance that financials with your love, you know, your a labor of love. Yeah.
Yeah, like myself, God, what do? I'm a teaching artist at 2 schools. I'm a mentor at another teaching program that we have at Raíces y Cariño in Watsonville. I am the director of Arte Del Corazón. You know, I help with like workshops, these like creative workshops that we've been doing with the creative or the work of art. Like I do a lot of stuff so that I can pay my bills, right? But you know, you get to a point too as artists where you're like, I do actually want to have a moment to make. And so like that kind of like plays into that role, right? Because you're like, I'm constantly trying to survive.
How do you engage the community within Watsonville to actually engage in the arts and support the arts within the community, specifically visual arts? Because as you said, you know, Watsonville thrives in music and dance. I know the folklorico dancers are beautiful and there's always festivals, but really on the visual arts side, how do you engage the community?
I think like what I've seen is the city has tried to put forth funds. Like they've really like gone out, seeked funds in some way. Like they've had people paint these utility boxes in town and like this barrier wall that we have. Like it's somewhat happening, but it's not a lot, right? It comes down to like, how are these visual artists going to make money? And a lot of the times that comes from selling paintings, right? Paintings or like prints of their work. But then when you go to a market and people see your work and they pass it by, and they're like, you know, like, I don't need a piece of art. I don't need another piece of art. I don't need another piece of art type of thing. Every time they pass by it, every time. And that starts to kind of eat away at you, I think, like as a visual artist. So we've seen like artists slowly leave our markets and not come back. But the artists who have been successful have been the ones who do stickers. Which is a fun one. So artists who create stuff that are stickers, really, really cheap things, right? They can make a bunch of money, especially if they put a lot of effort into it. And so that's kind of been a thing right now, other than poster competitions and like having like getting big enough that people start buying your originals. You know, I think it's like it's public art. It's figuring out a way to sell those pieces that you make and finding the right audience.
Where do your artists come from? Are they coming from Watsonville, Santa Cruz area, or from outside of that?
So we have a mixture. We have about, I want to say 50% that are from Watsonville. Watsonville-based artists or artists that like just recently moved because it's really expensive and they can't live here anymore. Or we have like people from Seaside, Marina, San Jose. We have people from LA come out sometimes. All sorts of people, which has been great to get that type of, you know, commitment from our community to come and see how our markets go, because Watsonville isn't a place, you know, where people have had this type of market, right? And so, you know, getting people to buy has definitely been our biggest challenge. We've done over 40 markets since 2019, and we still have this challenge. So, you know, it's not easy, but I'm glad that people keep coming.
So when you say you have 40 of these markets, are you going to like outdoor events and stuff like that, setting up a tent and showcasing stuff? And is that where it's...
So what we do is we organize, you know, those events you go to, well, we organize the whole event. So we hire the musician, we hire the performer, we put out a call for vendors and bring all the vendors in. We make sure that there's an activity happening. We promote it. We try to do it when other things are happening to see if that helps bring people. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but we've tried it, right? Right now, we actually have a Selena event that's happening on the 20th of April in Santa Cruz for the first time. I have been hesitant about going to Santa Cruz. I'm like, that's someone else's ball game. Like, I don't even want to touch it. But we're like, hey, if people are going to buy stuff, I will bring the vendors to Santa Cruz, because these vendors deserve it. They are so talented. They deserve their work to be purchased. They deserve to be able to like make some money off of these markets, because a lot of them have stayed with us for the past 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, Santa Cruz is, when I'm thinking about it, is an epicenter of that area. You get people from Scotts Valley, from Boulder Creek, from all of the, what they call the SLV, right? San Lorenzo Valley, coming into that area. And from my experience, I played a lot in those areas. There's a lot of people that are interested in art in those areas, and even in Santa Cruz itself. So I think it would be actually a really good, it should be a really good showing. So
Yeah, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for that. I think like my hesitancy has always come from believing in my Watsonville community, and I'm like, I know they have it. I know if they just like saw my post a little bit sooner and planned for it, they would be there. I know if they just thought that something was happening in Watsonville, because a lot of people will be like, there's nothing happening in Watsonville. That's like the broken record of Watsonville people. If all those things fell into place, then it would be successful. And I've been hoping and hoping and hoping, and after a while, you got to just be like, all right, where's the money at? Because we got to go find it to make it success. We got to do it.
Yeah. I have kind of an extended family out in Aromas. So, maybe I'll just have to put the word out to them and they'll show up out there. But no, I think Watsonville's a great place. It's a great, like you said, there's a lot going on out there. And, some of them parties have been the fiestas have been some of the best ones I've ever been to.
Yeah, definitely. They go forever. I know. My neighbors.
That's the truth.
Myself.
So what does a typical day at Arte del Corazón look like?
Yeah, I mean, now we have a location, so I can talk to that a lot more. Like when it was at my house, it would be like, wake up, look at my Instagram, in bed with my dog. Like now we have a location, so I have to get dressed and I have to go across the street, which is actually pretty lucky. It's really close to my house. And I sit there and I usually reply to emails. Hopefully I do it perfectly. Sometimes there's a couple emails I have to reply to right now. But I like to reach out to artists. I talk to them, see if they want to do anything with us, check in with them. I get a lot of questions. Instagram's a big place where I get a lot of questions. And I've spoken to a lot of other organizations and they're like, oh, we'll send them an email, or they got the email. And I'm like, they're not looking at their emails. They are not. And it's funny, I have a billion emails and people will send me an email for everything. And it'll be the same, all my emails will get the same email. And I'll be like, can you guys choose an email? Because I have 4. And I try to keep my things separate. But yeah, emails is a big thing, Instagram. But also just we have amazing interns at Arte del Corazón. This is our second round of interns. One is a student from Watsonville High and the other is a student from Aptos High. Lily and Myra out there. And they are great. They've basically helped us build our space. They've, put together tables. They've painted the mural in the space. They've done every little thing I've asked them to do so sweetly. And, and, it's been great to have them. And we pay them. I came from college years of how much free work I've done? I don't know if you guys have that face out there when you hear that. And now these kids today, I am spoiling them and they are getting paid minimum wage to do stuff I would do for free to find their way. Well, I will say it isn't just me. And I always like to let people know this. I have a team of people. Jessica Carrasco works with me, Marisa Marquez. I've had other amazing people, a little horror business, goes by Cindy also, but I'll give her name. Ome Garcia, Momo Sanchez. We have a committee of artists. This is me, and I definitely feel if I wasn't there, things might fall apart. But I do not take everyone else for granted. They are the only reason that we exist.
I think that's a huge point that you touch on, because a lot of people out there may be thinking about starting up their own nonprofit or their own business, and they have an idea and they try and tackle it all themselves. And what happens? Things just start slipping aside. You really need a team to be successful in anything you do, but especially in this nonprofit business. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been in meetings, like lunches. That's a big thing, by the way, once you get into the nonprofit world, is you get invited to a lot of lunches to discuss things. I think that like it's one of those like you have to feed the artist thing, and I'm just like, oh, you can actually pay me a consultation fee. Maybe I could get an hourly rate here instead of just a burger.
Right.
But anyways, you go to a lot of meetings, and they've told me like, why don't you just do it all yourself? Like, I don't understand why you're trying to find money to pay all these other people. I'm like, one, I'm an artist, and I want to be an artist. And two, why would I put that much stress on myself? Like, I'm not, like, in what world do I know how to be a marketing professional and an administrative person? I mean, I'm doing it. I mean, I'm not super successful at it, but I'm doing it. But, you can't do it all.
No, definitely takes a team. But, I mean, I congratulate you on tackling it and getting out there and starting the process. And, I mean, you're well beyond the start of the process. You're in there knee deep and making it happen. So, congrats to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And then what services or support does Arte del Corazón provide to local artists?
So we have, since the beginning, wanted to provide as much support as possible. And I do. If anyone ever has questions, I sit there with them. If they need to apply for a grant, I will read it for them, help them write it. I will do all of that. But recently we've gotten some funding from the Arts Council to get paid to do that stuff, which was great. So we put a lot more effort into it. But we've been looking for funding to help us as adult artists. We're like figuring it out as we go. We didn't have all this funding when we were kids, and we don't have all this like training and like there's like the digital nest in Watsonville that shows you how to do like graphic design and filming and like podcasting and all that stuff. And us adults are like, we didn't have that, So right now I've been focused on finding funding to like support our adults to like get them somewhere that they need to be. But, all the funding is in youth. Anyways, so to get back to the question, we offer support with grants. We help people with starting their businesses. We help people if they have questions about insurance, if they have questions about markets. I get a lot of people that I meet with who are curious how markets work, how, like, if they need a permit for this, if they need that. And I don't come at things from a bureaucratic sense. So I like give them the truth of like how I do things. So if you come to me, you get like the lowdown, You don't get the like, okay, go here, go that. I'll be like, okay, talk to this person and talk to that person. And they never check this, but if you want it, go get it. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah, it helps to have those pointers,
Yeah. And that's a recent thing. It's a recent thing that we put it out there. I've done it just like myself. When I talk to a lot of artists, they ask me a lot of questions. But we recently put it out there that they can like reserve time with us, and it's free for them. And we've slowly tried to get people to pay me. How I talked about those like lunches? People to pay me to give them some advice, because I give some good advice, and I do not get paid. So that's why we have that $75 consultation fee on there, because I will get businesses, nonprofits, hey, how do you do this? And I will give them their whole thing, like everything that took me years to learn. I didn't start off knowing how to organize a market. I had to figure it out, and a lot of people organized them for me, and I had to watch them and see what they were doing. Like, it didn't just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's actually an awesome service. I might have to take you up on that, because I started an LLC, and it's like it's more like a nonprofit right now, but it really is like all the paperwork and everything, and keeping track of expenses. All of that it's a hustle, and if you're the one person doing it all, it really takes a lot of knowledge to get comfortable with that,
Oh yeah.
A little mentorship. So
yeah, and everyone needs a little mentorship. Like, I'll talk to Jim at the Arts Council. He's the director of the Arts Council. I'll ask him questions. Like, I am not afraid to ask questions. I will ask everyone questions. I will Google it. I will figure it out and fail. I always tell people, hey, if you don't try and fail, like, then you didn't learn anything. So you could just sit there and not do anything if you want, but you might as well give it a try.
But it's true with a small-knit community, especially where, you just have these conversations and you go, wait a minute, it's been an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And this is more like a consultation.
Yeah.
With that people actually charge for it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that, Arte del Corazón is providing that service kind of more in a formal way of, hey, we do have these services. One, because it probably gets the name out there more to other companies or organizations. But also, it's kind of bringing credibility to you guys as artists as well of, hey, we know how to do these things, but also treat us like our professionals.
Exactly. And like, just to clarify, artists out there, I help you for free. But yeah, you businesses, nonprofits, I need to start getting paid.
For real, for real.
So are artists able to auction off or sell their pieces? I know you talked a little bit more about it earlier, but is it only in the galleries or is it at the markets or just anywhere?
So it's strictly been at the markets. During our holiday markets, sometimes we have like art up on the walls. But we haven't yet done a gallery like indoors. Back in 2021, I believe it was, we did a exhibition series and we did that all outside. We did 4 exhibitions. Oh my God, do not do art outside. I know these pop-up vendors, they do this art outside. I don't know how you do it. They wrinkle, they shrink. There's water that gets in. I don't know how the water gets into these frames. You know, I'm sure there's some science to it. But so, you know, I always connect people if they ever like need to meet anyone, because people always ask me questions and they're like, hey, do you have an artist that does this? Oh, I'm looking for this. And I'll connect people on Instagram. If I have their number, I'll send their number. If I have their card in my purse, I'll give the person their card. And that's kind of how it works. But we're hoping to start having more of that like gallery experience. We're hoping to do like some artist spotlights at our location in Freedom and have artists be able to sell their work from there.
And then on your site, it shows, right, the consultation services available for artists. And what are the main topics, though, during these consultations? And how big of a role do they play specifically just supporting local artists? Because I know we talked about the business side, but mainly specifically towards artists.
Yeah. Like a little bit about like the same things I went over earlier, you know, the grants, the business end of it, taxes. I am one of the weirdos who love doing my taxes. I know. I can hear a coin drop or whatever.
I just choked back a little bit because I just finished mine, and let me tell you.
This is the first year I've ever done our taxes this late because we've been so busy this year. And we increased a lot of the work we were doing, and we had to cut back on staff. And like every time we cut back on staff, quote unquote, it becomes Monica's job because that thing doesn't stop being needed to happen, right? But anyways, yeah. So helping people with taxes. If anyone has any questions about markets, things like that. It's really open because I have a plethora of experience. Like I've been an artist for over 15 years. And I've done nonprofit work. And when I was in that nonprofit, I saw what could have been getting done and what wasn't getting done. And that's a lot of the reason why Arte Del Corazón ended up being what it is today, instead of just a gallery sitting somewhere that I'm just at the front of the gallery waiting for people to come in and buy work. You know, now I'm doing more community work, you know, and so seeing, you know, the disparity and what's getting given and all of that in the nonprofit world kind of forced that.
And then how many artists does your organization currently have in your different programs? Okay,
let's see. I got that question and I was like, I should have looked, but I will do a guesstimate. I will say we, like, including our markets, we about 150. Wow. And it fluctuates, right? For our youth collectives, we have about, I want to say like 40 to 50 right now in our youth collectives. And then when we do markets, which we now do every other month instead of every month, I don't know how I did every month, by the way. I'll just say that. We have about maybe about 100 throughout the year, because we do get new vendors, but we also have our regulars. And a lot of people have been like, hey, get rid of your regulars. They're there every time. I'm like, no, I'm not getting rid of them. They've been here the whole time. They deserve their spot at that market.
That's right.
Right?
Showing a little commitment helps, right?
Everyone's like, just always have new vendors. I'm like, no, sorry. We'll get a couple.
There's a sense of loyalty there. I like it. Yeah,
you have to have some loyalty.
You talked a little bit about youth programs. Can you speak a little bit more on the youth programs and what they are and what entails?
Okay, so really huge thing that we've been doing, and we got funding from the California Arts Council for this. It's their Arts Exposure Grant, in case anyone's out there needs ideas. Steal it. That's up to you. So what we do is we take students from alternative education high schools, high school students, to museums, art spaces. It can be in town or outside of town. We really try to focus on exhibits that like are culturally relevant to them, right? And we like the way we do it is we sandwich it. So as a kid, I was always taken on field trips, but you never really like got a sense of why you were there or what it was, and you kind of just like showed up and you're like, we get to be outside of school one day, right? So the idea behind this is that it's sandwiched. So the first day is an introduction to the program, an introduction to the artist that we're going to go see or the group of artists we're going to go see. They begin an art project on that topic, and then they go to the museum. And then the third day is a debrief, and they go over, like everything that they saw, if they have any questions, right? And then we kind of say bye, which is kind of the sad part. But we found some funding to do one for a whole semester. So we've been working with El Nido, which is an alternative education behind Cabrillo in Watsonville. And they have been coming every Thursday to our location, and they will be going to 4 different art spaces, museums this semester, which is great. And then while that's happening, we're going to different alternative education high schools and doing these 3-day short kind of workshops with them. But what it does, it allows them to feel confident while they're at that museum, because they're like, oh, what is this? Modern art? Contemporary, whatever, like, I don't know. Like, how do I discuss this texture, and how do I discuss that? And I've never painted before. How do I know how to look at art? So it gives them like substance before they go. And then it also prepares them and their families so that they can get their families to go to museums, right? And they can like tell their siblings about their experience, and their siblings might want to go, right? Other than them just being like, oh, well, there's the museum, but I just never gone to it. How do we get them there? And then the last thing, I forget, there's one more. The youth collectives, which I am a mentor of one of them, and Jessica Carrasco is a mentor of the other. And what we do is we bring art projects, art activity ideas, but it's basically a place where youth can come and make art with us. It's very social emotional. Like, we do a lot of talking, like this. And when you have a mentor that's from your community, that you can really connect with, it's when like the most magic happens. Like, we talk a lot, we converse, but yeah, it's great. And then they start to talk, they start to open up, they're less closed off. I've seen students grow beautifully from that experience, and all of a sudden they're like leaders and like taking down teachers and like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, you were quiet in the corner and I made you talk. I make people talk.
Yeah. I think finding a program that somebody's comfortable in is really important to growing and finding yourself in those areas, especially with the youth. You seem to have a very comfortable personality about you, and this organization. It's really a great place for somebody. We see a lot of kids that do have these art, talents, but where do they channel that? How do they get that out, and how do they not only grow artistically, but as a citizen as in society. So yeah, it's really great to hear that story.
Yeah, and I say creative thinking is an amazing skill for anyone to have, because you're going to use that in any job you do. So when people say like, it's just art, like you should take math, or you should take science, or you should become like a doctor, or you should become a lawyer, all those things. And I'm like, yeah, those are great, but if you don't have creative thought, if you can't, think critically under pressure, if you don't know how to like do visual things, now in this world, everything's visual, right? Yeah. Any type of maybe you don't even know how to make a flyer or something. I don't know. Very basic, but it's necessary.
So how do you see Arte del Corazón growing and developing in the future, and what do you believe will make that possible?
I hope for a big space in Watsonville where there's a gallery, there's a black box theater. We've talked about this, actually. It's not just my dream, by the way. I won't take credit. But a space where artists can all come together, but it's also connected to the other amazing spaces in Watsonville. Even if it's just by their flyers or at our location. where there's, the ability for artists to come and make work and have studio space, or just come and make, like, ceramics is something we don't have in Watsonville, and I wish we had. I love ceramics. Things like that, where people can come and make together. And I definitely see that coming. I see it within, like, maybe, like, 3 or 5 years, hopefully sooner, if we can light some fires, But yeah, I hope for people to come to Watsonville as, like, it's kind of hard with the touristy thing, like, in gentrification. There's like it's like a touch and feel. You gotta, like, how do you do this and have everyone who's already there, benefit, and not just make it like, oh, this place is cool now, let's all move in and have this here and that bar there and that there. Like, there's a huge fine line between gentrification in our small communities, right? So I definitely see finding those ways to kind of balance the gentrification and the, community needs, and having this, like, beautiful space that doesn't just pull all the resources and things like that. Yeah.
And then what is currently your largest event of the year for artists, and how does this event impact your organization?
Oh my goodness, let me see. Our largest event. This is hard, I will say, because we, back in 2021, started organizing the arts section of the Strawberry Festival. So myself and some people on my team, we have like a section of like 40, 45 people, and we, like, fought to make it affordable as possible so that people can come and vend. Oh my God, it was a whole thing. But it's there now. So sometimes it's that one, right? But our biggest one, I will say, has been our Selena event. Selena has been a big one in terms of something that we just do. Like, that one, I mean, it's the Strawberry Festival. People are coming because it's the Strawberry Festival. But the Selena event is something that we fully, like, organize, and, we do the music, we do the entertainment, all of that. People come because they love her, just like I do. And, like, I sit there and I sing to all of her songs throughout the whole market, and people come by and they dress like Selena. And one year we had this really awesome lip sync battle, and, like, people went crazy for it. And yeah, I definitely think our Selena has been big, but we're hoping to make all of them equally big. We also do a Mercado de Muertos in collaboration with the Watsonville Film Festival, and they do a Coco event every year. And so we do the Mercado de Muertos. By the way, that name was another event, and I made it Watsonville Mercado de Muertos, and then it just became Mercado de Muertos. So now I'm stealing names left and right. But we do the Mercado de Muertos, and that one is pretty successful as well because of all of the, like, collaboration with that other nonprofit. And then we do a Frida event, and that one we are getting momentum, but we have not reached, like, epic proportions yet with the Frida. But we are trying. That one will be in September, in case you guys are interested. But we are hoping to make it a whole, like, Frida experience this year.
So you mentioned this was in 2021, correct?
Yeah. So 2021 is when we started the Strawberry Festival, but we have done it since then. So it's been 3 years. This will be our fourth year. Yeah, our fourth year doing the Strawberry Festival. It's in, like, August 2nd and 3rd. And then we do all those markets that I just said. We've been doing those for the past, like, 2-3 years.
So when did you first think of starting your nonprofit, and what pushed you towards your giving purpose?
Yeah. So let's see. I had been invited to a market, and at that time I knew no other artists in Watsonville, very little. I was a teaching artist for Mariposa Arts. I, like, maybe got invited to a few things, but missed my shot and never, like, literally met anyone. I was just, like, came back from, getting my bachelor's, and I didn't have any, like, no one to talk to because I had spent all my time at school learning how to be an artist, and now I have no community because barely anyone from Watsonville goes to Cabrillo, so and especially for art. So anyways, So I had a very small community. So I went to this art market and oh my goodness, I met so many artists. I connected with them. I saw their art. I spoke to them. I felt like so excited. And like a year before this, my grandma had passed away. And whenever I would go with her on the town in Santa Cruz, she lived in Santa Cruz. We'd talk to everybody, said hello. Everybody knew her. Such an amazing woman. And I felt that light that I felt when I walked with my grandma at this market. And I thought, I had this idea back in 2018. Let's try it. Let's do it. Like, I'm all in. I was in my first semester at grad school. And I was like, we're going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of being frustrated. I'm going to make this happen. And we began. I got together a bunch of artists. I had some money, thankfully. I paid them because I was like, I'm not going to pay you. That's not my value system. I paid them the money that I had, and we did our first market, and people were really excited about it. And then COVID hit. And I was like, we are not going to take this one sitting down, And we decided to do a Mercado de la Red, which is like an online art market. And we put everyone on our website, and we had all their like Instagrams and their photos and like, hey, where to go buy. And even though like it wasn't super, like people were like, oh, how do you even buy stuff online? Like it was a whole thing. It was like right before it like became big. And then like after COVID, there was this big push to do outdoor markets because everybody was inside, and they're like, how do we get people out of their houses and buying stuff again? All that stuff. You can go down the rabbit hole with that conversation. But people were making masks and stuff, and apparently that made them essential. And so we were able to have markets again. So the last 2 months of 2020, we started having markets, and then 2021, every month we had markets. Every month, sometimes twice a month. For a whole year. It was a lot. And then we kind of slowly slowed down in 2022 and tried to do them a little less frequent. And then now we're like one every 2 months. We take off January and February. At least I try. But people always want something for Valentine's Day. And I'm like, if you're going to do it, committee, like that's you. Like I need a break.
Yeah. That's a great time, though, like we talked about earlier. I mean, that's kind of the slow down time.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's when grants kind of come out, but not really. Yeah. They love to come out when I'm in the middle of organizing markets. That's their favorite time. Or when I have, like, something due at school. Or
Can you describe a time where you saw a significant impact on an individual or a group as a direct result of your nonprofit?
This is something maybe I'm humble. I don't know. That I will never like fully claim, but I will say what other people have told me. That since Arte Del Corazón began, that the art scene in Watsonville has expanded completely. And it could be us. It could be us. I will say it's maybe. Hopefully. But it has expanded greatly. Since we came in. Before we like started doing things, there was nothing for me to go to meet anyone, right? Like yeah. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to find out about it. That's for sure. Yeah. And now there's so much. There's like an amazing amount of events happening. There's so many markets. I mean, markets are definitely happening, but there's more of a community there than I think that there ever was when I was trying to find it.
As they say, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think you are building something. And
I definitely think we played a huge role in it, for sure. But otherwise, like I said, our youth, it's like when they come to us shy little individuals, and then they become these amazing leaders, because they had someone to talk to. They had someone that, shares similar ideals. The hardest thing I think I come across, I am like a light-skinned person, right? I'm mixed, and I ended up getting less, melanin. But, I grew up in low-income housing. My dad wasn't from Mexico. He came when he was 21 and learned how to speak English for, reasons of his own, and met my mom who speaks no Spanish. And then they had us. But I have such a plethora of experience to share with youth, but because of my color, a lot of them don't think that they can relate to me. And so it takes a lot of work to kind of get that. And so a lot of times I'll especially bringing on like someone like Jessica and like other like interns or even like supports in the classroom or things like that will help. But getting to know them, like they'll mention little things about like their parents being incarcerated. I'm like, oh yeah, my parent was incarcerated too. Like my father was into drugs, like I lived in low income housing, like all these things. And it's slowly, but it's, it's something that I think that I slowly make impact, but I wish one day, I wish I could do so much more, because I want them to see like I've been through it and I came out of it.
Yeah.
And you can too, and I hope that comes across.
Yeah, I could 100%. I feel you on that one, because I'm the same kind of complexion, and I grew up in a low income neighborhood, and I really wasn't accepted in my neighborhood. I wasn't accepted in the other neighborhood I got schooled in, so it was it was a struggle to really kind of fit in and have people look deeper than just here, and. It's still kind of a struggle every now and then. People look at me, they'll know me for 5 years ago. I didn't know you're Latino. No, hey, I am,
Yep. I mean, you and me could probably be millionaires by now with how many times we've heard that.
And my wife is from Mexico, and I don't speak that much Spanish. I get enough to get me out of the airport and to where I got to be, or leave me alone for a couple hours, but not too long,
Yeah.
So I could totally relate to that. But I want to know, what are your biggest challenges that you've seen, running a nonprofit?
Yeah. I think for me is that I am an artist. I definitely have more administrative skills than a lot of artists that I've met, but I'm still an artist, and what I mean by that is I don't have all of these skills of how to organize my time or or how to write these crazy write-ups for grants that make me sound like this amazing fairy person. I can only speak from the heart, in my grants, which is maybe why I've gotten some. There's just a lot there, right? And also funding, because I am an artist. I'm not rich. People for some reason think I'm rich because I've done so much. I've just been fortunate to have opportunities where money has fallen, and I grew up poor, like we talked about, and I just give it all away when it comes. One day I'll keep it, but I don't know. But that's kind of been I'm like, oh, I don't need it. I'm chill. I probably live off $32,000 a year, and people would probably when they hear that, how are you alive? I don't know. I find a way.
I mean, I totally, again, I could relate to you on that, because I know when I'm paying my artists, I want them to feel comfortable leaving, whatever we put together for that day. And me, I'm just happy with, grabbing a couple tacos on the way home, filling up my gas tank. And that really when I see the full, effect, I'm sure you have that same kind of feeling, You see the full effect that you push into it. It's just a big heart,
Yeah, it's a big heart. I think you need that to keep going. And I've seen so many people try and fail, because a lot of the times they do have that big heart, but they also have an ego.
Yeah, egos will get
They
you.
have a big heart. I mean, I have my own type of ego, but they have that ego of if people do not see me as God,
Right?
then I am leaving.
That's right.
I'm not helping you anymore. People go, and people love you, they hate you, they la 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 la. It's up and down. In my role, I've had people despise me, want to talk to me in meetings, as if I need to have a meeting with them. Because they're I don't know you. Who are you? What are you doing? This and that. And I'm I just, you just got to keep working at it and be your authentic self and roll with the punches.
That's right. It's been a great conversation. Anna, do you have anything else to add to this?
No, I just think that, especially you were talking about how the art sector has grown. I live in Watsonville. I'm from Watsonville, and I've definitely seen it grow, and I love seeing it grow too. My mom is an educator and has been an educator for years in Santa Cruz County, specifically in Watsonville. And so I know growing up, I didn't see a lot of students really get engaged in the arts. And now she always talks about how wonderful it is. And she sees all of her old students, and some of them are artists, and some of them do murals. And she's just so happy. And it just opens my heart and makes me feel so happy too that, it is engaging the community because, like you said, Watsonville is filled with a bunch of different types of arts. So kind of merging them all together is beautiful. I know my family will be going to the Selena event. I know we almost went to the Calaveras event. It's like the Calaveras ball.
Yes, Calavera. We're gonna have a big one this year, by the way. Fundraiser. That's my Achilles heel is fundraising, actually.
So Joe, it's like everyone like dresses up in the calaveras and you paint your face like the sugar skulls, and it's a big night of like
this
music. This
is the first time we did a small version of it. No one painted their face. Maybe one person. I was like, no, you guys, we're doing this again.
What is it called?
The Calaveras
It's called a Calavera ball. Like, how like the Calaveras and the Catrinas.
The Catrinas, I know Catrinas.
Yes, yeah.
I've been
like
to the place where that city where they make all the Catrinas. Yeah, I've been out there. It's pretty intense.
I've watched so many videos. I have never been to Mexico as an adult, you guys.
Actually, I've traveled more states in Mexico than I have the United States.
That's
and
awesome.
I'll be going back this summer, so yeah. My wife's family takes us to all these little places, and it's really the artwork is phenomenal. These from town to town, state to state. Whether the art's in food or whether it's actually a tangible thing that you could buy and take home. But yeah, I have a bunch of Catrinas at home. We always put them up for our Day of the Dead kind of thing going on.
Well, you and your family now have to come to the Calaveras ball.
Yeah, we should definitely.
I have
I'm
your
down for that.
contact info. I have your numbers.
Yeah. Well, I'll be following you shortly after I get out of this.
There you go.
But I do have one last question for you, and that's how can our listeners become volunteers or donate, or artists out there become involved with your program?
So first of all, they can email me. That's number one. I will say my email is Monica Galvan. Wow, did it the wrong way. Monica@artedelcorazon.com. Or you can also go to our website, artedelcorazon.com. It's del, not de. You will get to another site that's completely off, just so you know. Del, D-E-L, like Del Taco. And we have like a way to contact us on our website. We have a way to subscribe. If you're a high schooler out there and you need credit, come volunteer at our markets, have fun, and hang out with me, and I get to boss you around in the best way. And I'm great at that.
Well, I know we thank you for being on our show today, being on our podcast. We appreciate you coming out here and doing all this great information for our audience. And I'm hoping you great success in everything that you do on from here. So everybody out there, go check it out. Go check out the website and get some more information on Arte del Corazón. And thank you again for joining us here on Giving Purpose Podcast.
Yeah, thank you both. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Giving Purpose Podcast, and please click on the subscribe button to stay informed about new episodes. You can also find more information about Giving Purpose Podcast on our website at givingpurposepodcast.com, or add us on Instagram, Facebook, or Threads at Giving Purpose Podcast. You can also find us by the same handle on YouTube for some supplemental video content of each episode. We'd like to thank our guest, Monica Galvan, of the nonprofit Arte del Corazón, for joining us today. We'd also like to thank our co-creator and editor, Isabella Cariño-Hernandez, for all her behind-the-scenes work. We'd also like to thank, for their continued support, our chair, Professor Nisha Garard-Patkar, and committee members Kim Massey and Gordon Gurley for their continued leadership and support. We'd also like to thank you, our listeners, for your interest and contributions to our featured guests and the work they do to make their giving purpose effective in our Bay Area communities.
Thank you for listening to Giving Purpose Podcast. For more information, you could visit our website at givingpurposepodcast.com.